You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
April Chang, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey.
One of these days, we need to do a podcast where we just eat snacks and tell jokes and not be so serious.
That would be good.
One of these days.
That would be good because I actually have some crazy stories.
Do you really?
Oh, I do.
We'll have to do that one of these days, but
right.
not today.
Okay.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about grief. We touched on it on the last podcast we did together, but I guess with what happened recently in Kerrville and up in that area, it's worth having a conversation about again.
Yeah.
And I might have gum on my lips, so if I have something weird, just let me know.
I don't
That
think
extra
so.
gum gets super sticky, but I like we were talking about earlier. I feel like my initial or my primary feeling when things happen is anger. That's my first one. And when that flood happened, it was, I think I saw it on social media or something. Typically, that's where you see stuff first, right, nowadays.
Yeah.
And when I first saw it, I thought it was weird. I thought it wasn't like an anniversary video of when the Guadalupe flooded.
87.
87.
Yeah, that burned in my brain.
Yeah, and that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Because it was the same thing, school buses, kids at camp, kids in trees, helicopters pulling them out. So when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it must be like an anniversary or something of when that happened. And then you find out it's happening again. So right away, I don't know, I get, it just really bothered me that it was like watching something that had already happened.
Because it has.
Yeah. And it was like, how are we doing this again?
Many times this happened.
Yeah, it has. That river is very dangerous.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into.
Dude, I won't even tube it. I tubed it
really?
once.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I like living. No, I'm serious. I mean, some of my friends, they all have stories of I almost drowned in the Guadalupe.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
It's a very dangerous river. It's good for the state. It's good for water, and there's plenty of it in there at
Beautiful.
times.
It's gorgeous.
But it can get very dangerous, and
Yeah.
and I don't want to do the whole. I mean, we're not here to talk blame and all that other good stuff. There's plenty. There's a podcast for that.
Most people don't know, and honestly, most people who are new to Texas have no clue, and they have no clue, honestly, about flash floods and how they think of creeping water, and they don't realize how it just comes so fast, and you can't look at the rain happening right here. You got to look up upstream because that's where the water's coming. It's not, and I get it. It hit home for me because seeing children in care of others, that's where we lost our son, Mitchell. He was in the care of others, and he died.
Yeah.
And we found out at first I was very upset with the employees there because we didn't know the whole situation.
Sure.
But then as we learned the facts and everything, I really realized where responsibility was in that my son's situation. But I also very much realized you can't judge something initially in a way, because you don't, seeing it from the outside, you don't know really what happened. You don't know really what's going on. You don't know all the setups, all that stuff. So it's been really hard because seeing these children unfortunately lose their lives and they weren't with their parents, which is just so heartbreaking because I also know what it's like to be like, my son, he was probably scared to death thinking, where's my mommy?
Yeah.
And mommy wasn't there.
Sure.
But I also think that's why it's honestly so traumatic to the community, because that is a huge, huge fear of losing your kid, someone else causing their death. And
I think also for the folks that are, I guess, working those camps, that's a response. Like to say that
they're so young and they don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, those cabin workers, and honestly, I hate to say this, but they're a different generation. And they're like, I look at my son and seeing how functional he is at 12, I'm like, you're going to be driving in 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, that scares me because, I think he just learned to brush his teeth a year ago. I mean, that's exaggerating, but not really in a way, you know? It's a different generation. They're not as functional and savvy and, you know, they're very smart, but not in other ways. And
Right.
it's like, and so it is all, I mean, I feel so bad for the camp workers because they carry this weight, just like I said, with those employees. And we don't know the whole situation. We don't know the whole setup. And even though in gut reaction, it's like, I want to, that's so wrong. But you never know. And the things you put out there, you can never take back.
Yeah.
And people see that, just like the victims' families and their siblings and their best friends will see it. And that can affect them later on. Something people don't realize is that this also gets pulled into the court cases. Like when we filed a lawsuit to find out how Mitchell died, like really quickly, because we weren't getting answers. And so we filed a lawsuit right away to preserve any evidence. And one of the things that gets pulled in, it's literally what people put in online. That actually gets pulled like
Really?
Oh yeah. Like comments and stuff, like attorneys find those and they're like, okay, and then it's now part of the file.
Wow.
And emails, like people emailing like the business owner being like, oh, I'm thinking of you. I know every person that was thinking of that business owner, you know, things like that. Like people don't realize. So you want to reach out, you want to do all this, but it can have so much bigger ramifications than what you realize. And you putting something out there that might not be accurate could end up in court somehow. We don't like, that wasn't meant to be. It was just meant to be a little comment on Facebook, you know?
One thing that you said recently, I saw one of your posts, and it was a bit eye-opening, but you made a comment to how many generations that your family has lost with Mitchell passing.
Yeah.
You know, and then you talked about, you know, with the other two boys and gaining those generations that are going to come down the line. But, you know, when you think about the loss of those children and adults and other folks, and, you know, it wasn't just the camp, it was people in town. And
thousands.
It was thousands.
In a way.
Yeah.
Because of the ripples.
But, you know, you think about all those people that passed and just, you know, when you talked about generational loss, it was like, that's massive in that area. And that's massive for those families because it's like, who are they going to marry? Who, you know, what are their kids going to be like? And it's just this long lineage of loss, you know? And I think that's something that we ignore as just John Q. Public when you see things like that.
I mean, the ripples. I mean, each death, each tragedy, each impact, they each have their own ripples. And this one, it's like almost, 200. I mean, all said and done, 150, 200, who knows, you know, ripple, like stones being thrown in the pond at once and all these ripples going. But all these ripples that are basically like what impact they have. And they just spread, they just keep going all across like the lake, you know, because we literally lost Mitchell, who could no longer get married. And he's not going to have his kids. And we lost those grandkids when he died. We lost our grandkids in a way. And our great-grandkids. Like, we literally, it was wiped out a generation.
Sure.
And of our family. And with this, I mean, I don't know how Kerrville can recover. And I know a lot of these families weren't from Kerrville. They came in.
Right.
But the workers there, you know, and the people that live there are helping, but they feel the impact and they're going to have to go through the grief of what they've seen and trying to move through this. Not only that, but they're going to have to deal now with the financial impact of the county of this. And it's huge. It's huge.
We were talking a little bit about some spiritual stuff earlier. And, you know, when a family member loses somebody like the way you guys did, you know, there's, and just in conversation with you and listening to you and seeing your post, you know, it's the loss and the grief is deep and it evolves. But it's interesting because, like, I see that, and I see that happening in your family. And in this case, it's an entire community going through this, you know, and it's
very publicly.
Yeah. And it's just a massive, like when I think about when I think about y'all's loss and grief, it's huge. But then when you talk about an entire community that's going through that together,
Yeah.
that's just got to be so heavy, And I know, like we talked about earlier, people want to help and people want to do things, but how do you help an entire community get out of that, or maybe not even get out of it, but slowly get better? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
People want to initially just flood the place with money and food, and that's great and it's needed. But like a year from
How
now,
can you have
5
a
years,
positive impact, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what people.
Right.
We talked about it earlier. People want to do that, but the other thing is that people need to understand is this is going to be for decades. They'll need help and they'll need assistance. Whether it's financially, but like how does an entire, let's just say, state help an entire community get out of this over years?
Okay, it's not just a community. How many miles of that river? Was it 60, 100?
Yeah, something like that.
It was a lot of miles.
I heard 60-ish at one point.
It's many communities, not just. Kerrville was hit very hard, obviously.
Yeah. There was also Comfort and Hunt.
Yeah. Thankfully, Comfort didn't suffer any losses of life, but they also have the structural, infrastructure impact that they're going to have to clean up. But you're right. So part of it is seeing this, we want to help. We naturally just want to make people better. That's the human part of us. But how can you do that in a good way? Because otherwise, sometimes it's not necessarily making a situation better. Is it kind of hindering things? April Chang out there with the chainsaw would be a very bad thing. Yeah. I would come home without a limb. I would be on the news. I would pass out. I would hinder things.
Sure.
How can you help with your strengths, right? Or, some people it might be financial. Some people, oh my gosh, I saw this one lady. I thought this was the most amazing thing. She knows how to sew really well. She said, anyone that lives in those cities who have something very special, like a children's blanket that got torn up, she will fix. And coming from me, like with Mitchell, I became a hoarder after he died of memories. If anything like that had happened to any of his stuff, that would have been an amazing gift. That would have been more than my house.
Yeah.
So how can you help in a positive way? And like you said, it's a long haul, right? Kind of like Gerald. Do you remember Gerald, the tornado north of Austin?
Yeah.
Yeah, it literally wiped out almost half the town. And people, I lived there, close to there, and 20 years later, you mention it, and the citizens, they would start crying. You can't even mention it without them crying. This is definitely a long haul, and they're going to need so much support financially, emotionally, physically, with cleanup, and then emotionally, with the kids. Oh my gosh, all these towns have kids. They're going to have to grapple with, why did I survive? Maybe my friend didn't,
Yeah.
And we as a community need to be really cognizant of that, because that was one thing with our family, trying to help Evan through this the best we can, our son. He was there also when Mitchell died. He was 5, Mitchell was 3. And Mitchell drowned out of swim school in 2018. And one of the things that was been hard is, okay, how can we get him through this? But the ripples, everything you do has an impact.
Sure.
And we don't want to make it worse, because it's we wanted everyone to know what happened so they can be safe and prevent it from happening to their family. But we didn't want to put so much out there that our son and other kids created false memories, and it impacts them also later on. So it's okay, how much can we put out? What can we say that's not going to traumatize kids? Because they're more important, in a way. I hate saying that, because then if a child, you don't want any child to drown in swim school, but it's weighing things yeah.
Did you ever find, it's going to constantly evolve, but did you ever find there were times where Evan was doing really well after, and then maybe there was a regression.
Oh, yeah.
And what do you think prompted that regression? Because one thing that I want people to think about is, when we talked about this earlier, a lot of times you interact with your children and you say, hey, this terrible thing happened, and you kind of help them understand it a little better.
Yeah.
And then we leave it alone, But then that thought or those stories evolve in these kids, even as they get older, and maybe that memory changes a little bit for them, What do you think it was that kind of sent Evan in a regression, and what was the process to maybe help? What was it that, first of all, what kind of sent him in the regression? What helped you notice that, and what changes did you make maybe in how y'all, whether educated him on something or interacted with him to kind of get him out of that?
Right. Okay, well, so children have underdeveloped brains, and as their brains grow and develop, their grief morphs and changes, honestly. So when tragedy like this happens, whether they're directly impacted, family member, or they hear about it and they're trying to process, okay, yes, we need to learn so that it doesn't happen to us, but we need to not live in fear every night. So with Evan, we were warned ahead of time it's going to happen. So we were looking for it.
Who warned you?
Oh, well, so we had like 3 therapists going on in our world. Like, we had lots of therapists everywhere that we were trying to help us get through this, because honestly, it was really hard just to breathe. Like, it was a win to just keep breathing that day, Mm-hmm. So we had lots of therapists, and so we were warned that, especially, yes, with adults it happens, but with kids it really does, because they'll be fine sometimes for like 5 years. We haven't seen the end of it, okay? I know this. We have not seen the end of Evan's grief. They'll be fine. They could be fine for years, and then as their brain hormones, life happens, they're something. So with Evan, here's a good example. So my son loves music. He wanted to learn how to play piano. I took him to go to piano lessons, all right? And we went to try this one lady. And we had scaled back on the therapy. We had actually, I think, stopped going to speech, because he had, I think, finished speech, maybe, speech therapy. And we go to this lady, and he loses it. Like, he refuses to sit next to her on the bench. He's hysterical. He's crying. He's
Had he already been to her before?
No, this is our first time. We're just trying her out. We're trying it out, right? But his was a very visceral response. I had no clue what the hell's going on. I'm like, what is up with this? I still didn't know. But he had a very visceral gut reaction with this lady. And I felt really bad. I felt so bad, but I was like, we got to end this now. We leave this session early. He starts stuttering. He stutters. That stuttering continued for a long time. But within a month, there were depositions of employees, and I realized that lady that did the piano lessons looked very, very similar to one of the girls who was there that day watching the children. So that probably was what was set him off, was she looked very similar. And that brought him back. And then it brought him back so much that he had a slight, maybe a little bit of a bumpy speech, maybe just normal, but he stuttered after that. And we had to do speech therapy for stuttering for about 2 or 3 years after that. 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, after that. Minor things even, like he had to have an IEP plan at his school about if they're going to do a fire alarm, he needs to be pulled ahead of time, because hearing fire, like the alarms, seeing fire trucks, if they're going to have anything to do with fire trucks, fire emergency workers, personnel would send him over. Like, he would snap pencils and become like he would pull into himself but shut down. And so we had to work on how can we he's fine now, and that reaction doesn't happen. But we had to really work on how can we like not have it happen to where he loses himself and then desensitize him. It's gosh, there was one other thing that was like so nuts. Oh my gosh, I forgot. Just the grief morphs. Like, they're sad, they're curious, they make up memories too, but then they also go into the anger, which is a natural cycle of grief. I remember it was like the hardest time ever. I was walking out of my car with him, and he looked at me and goes, "Mommy, I am really mad at you." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, "Yeah, why did you leave us there?" And it's like, yeah, I'm pretty mad at myself.
How long ago was that after the event?
I think it was about 3 years.
That long?
Yeah. Oh,
wow.
Yeah. After that, we started therapy at the Children's Bereavement Center of South Texas.
Okay.
And that actually really, really helped him. Actually, the group therapy and seeing, even though they didn't lose a sibling, they might have lost like their dad, a grandparent, someone close, but him being around other children his age was just one of the biggest helps. But when he was like directed to me, because I'm the mommy, not Marvin the daddy, but
sure.
Mommy, I'm really mad at you. And I'm like, I'm mad at myself too, and I get it. But that was a morphing of it also. And I understand, I can't tell him he can't be mad at me, because I should have left my baby there, and it's like, yeah.
It's interesting. I kind of half joke with people, but I feel like there's times, whether it's a boy or a girl, where the first initial years, the mother is their world,
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, they may have mom and dad, but at a certain age, mom's the world. Dad's just background noise for a while.
Our job is to make sure they survive. We keep them alive. We feed them. We make sure they're good. We get them from place to place. We make sure their needs are met.
Right.
Mommy makes sure their needs are met.
Mm-hmm.
That was my job.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it is understandable that he was mad. He had to be mad at someone. He didn't have access to the lawsuit files.
Sure.
And we aren't definitely sitting down telling him all these bad details about his brother's death. We don't want him remembering that. So it's like, okay, you got to be mad at someone. I'm mad at the swim school owner. It's okay. Be mad at me, and let's go talk through this.
Yeah. And for kids like that, they don't understand. They don't understand. At least I don't think they do. They don't understand that somebody else was responsible for them at that point in time. To them, mom's always watching us. Mom's always
he was smart enough to know. He was like, "Mommy, I'm mad at you for leaving us there with them."
Yeah.
So he was smart enough to realize, yeah, Mitchell died in the care of someone else, but also Mommy, because I never leave him places. Mm-hmm. I never do. And he was like, "Yeah, what? Really? Was that the smartest thing? Honestly, no, it wasn't." I guess he was 8 at the time. Yeah, he called me out on that, and he's allowed to. Because he could have died. He was in danger that night, honestly. So, it's fair.
One thing that's interesting, my wife's a special needs teacher, and she has a phrase, and they teach it all the time, and I absolutely love it. It is that behavior is communication,
Yes.
And I think a lot of times...
More than words.
Yes. And I think a lot of times people, even parents, because I see it in other people, where they just assume their kid's being bad. And it's like, and they don't put much thought into the actions. They just say, my kid doesn't listen. My kid's bad. I can't take him to the store. I can't, they're always doing something. And they think it's just a personality trait. And it's like, if you look deeper, there's a reason for it. A kid doesn't naturally want to misbehave or act out, or his incident with the piano teacher. That was pretty severe. Yeah. But there's times where the behavior isn't quite as severe. But it's still coming from something. And they're still trying to tell you something's wrong. They may not be able to articulate it very well, but they need you to know something's going on. And the only way to do that is through physical behavior.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people just, and not a thing against parents as well, it's just they don't understand that. They don't understand that what's happening is for a reason,
right.
And I think for a lot of people, it can be something minor. It can be something, not that, it could be some getting in trouble at school or being bullied at school, or, something major where somebody may be being mistreated by a family member, or being assaulted by a family member.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's so many times that I think people look back and they go, oh, there were signs. And it's like, there were signs for years. And it's like, you just have to understand, you got to read the tea leaves, and that's where I think people struggle. And so like something like what happened in Kerrville, what happened with you, there's so many, you talked about other kids being at that swim school as well. And it's like, even though your child may not have been directly impacted by something, the fact that they took this information in, and it's a terrible situation, and they're trying to process it. And I think it can kind of be really bad for children who weren't directly affected, because
they don't get
ignored.
the support.
Right.
They don't get the support.
And they don't get the therapy. They don't get the attention. The parents go, man, that's terrible. I'm glad it didn't happen to our kid. But they don't have that conversation in front of the kid, because they don't want to traumatize them. And that kind of makes sense. But at the same time, you have to address, hey, you were there at that swim school where Mitchell passed away.
They saw the ambulance. They saw the firefighters.
Very traumatic.
They saw this little kid getting CPR before they were pulled from the room.
Yeah.
And there needs to be addressing in lots of ways. Like, with Evan, we had to make sure he understood, so he didn't live a life of fear of what happened to Mitchell. Doesn't happen. Like, it's statistically, it cannot happen again. Like, statistically, you're not going to die. Like, it can't happen again. And to mommy and daddy, because it just doesn't happen. It's not often.
But for some kids, I think when they see stuff like that, like
if you don't tell them that, they're going to think it's going to happen to them.
And they think that this is what happens.
That's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal.
They think that those things do happen. That's a kid. I mean, that's how the brain works, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're that little. Here's a little kid who went to swim school and he passed. I'm going to go to swim school. Am I going to pass? And that's what
anything. You would be surprised, like how they would literally send it to anything. Children can reach out and put these little tethers of relations to almost anything. Like, what happened really affected Mitchell's pre-K3 classmates, actually a lot. And, there's still a few of them that still have, that are still having, it's been 7-8 years, about to be 8 years. There's some that are still having anxiety sometimes and they don't even realize it, honestly. They don't even realize it. And they just, they connect things in ways that, like, I can be hurt. Like, I don't want to go in the car because I can be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily a swim school. They just don't want to be hurt. One of the things that can happen, like with this flood, it happened at night.
Sure.
Kids were already scared to death of going to bed.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be perpetuated more. I know, like, just with my kids, I mean, I take, like, when we get, because I was in Oklahoma City with that tornado. So I take tornado warnings very seriously. And any tornado warning, doesn't matter if it's 3 a.m., I'm pulling the kids out of their room, we're going in. We actually even have a tornado room built in our house because I'm so paranoid. And after I pull them out, they're always like, for the next week or two, they're like, is it going to storm? Are we going to have a tornado? Are we going to die?
Yeah.
And everything always, there are all these ripples you got to think about, them, but you do have to address it. We need to take caution. We need to address it, but we don't need to live in fear.
Yeah.
Because realistically, statistically, things aren't going to happen. And if we do things in a responsible manner, like there's a tornado warning, let's go to the tornado room. We have a storm shelter in our house. Let's go to, because thankfully, thank you, Marvin. He placates me.
He sounds like a super sharp guy.
Oh yeah, he was not happy when I'm pulling him in there at 3 a.m. He's like, whatever. But I didn't get the warning. Well, I did. It's on my phone. But, we have to explain, okay, we do this to try to keep us as safe as we can so we don't get hurt. So and you're going to be okay. And you just try to teach responsibility, but still live your life. And that's really hard. And that's what we try to do with Evan. And I'm not saying we succeeded 100%, because they're still I don't think he's very insanely functional right now, but he's not stuttering anymore.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Like you just mentioned those kids at the camp, and it's nighttime. They're away from home. They're away from their parents and their siblings if they're not there with them. And it's like, and then you have this flood come through that's very traumatic, and I can't even imagine it. I've never experienced that. And these young kids are going through this, and I sit there and I go, because you even saw adults kind of talk about it, and it's unfortunate that people go there, but I also think, I'm like, these kids are at a church camp, right? And they're learning about God, and they're learning about Jesus and how they're loved, and then this thing happened to them. And it's like, how many of these kids are gonna decide they don't want anything to do with.
Well, that's a natural part of grief, actually. So I'm like thinking, oh my God, uncomfortable. No, but it's part of grief, actually. That's part of the grief cycle, is actually faith and grappling with it. Because I can't talk about the kids in the camp, because I wasn't there.
Sure.
But I can tell you about my experience and how they're all, and their parents, they're all probably gathering similar stuff. So like when Mitchell died, they brought him back at the ER, right? He was unresponsive when they left the swim school, meaning he was dead. After about 25 or so minutes in the ER, they were able to get his heart going again. I'm so thankful. That was great to be able to say goodbye to him. But during that time in the ICU, the pediatric ICU, he lived, I think, about 6 or 8 hours. I remember just praying and thinking, God's not going to take him from me, because Marvin has saved so many people. Like, God owes us. And that's awful to think. But honestly, like, Marvin gave up so much. He sacrificed so much, like, of our family time, of everything. Like, he would get called into surgeries. He's not even supposed to be working that day. He's not on call. And they get a call from a surgeon. You are the only one of 2 anesthesiologists who can do this case, and the other's out of town. And Marvin would go because the person needed him. And Marvin has actually saved lives. And I was like, God won't do this, because Marvin's put in the good. And I was really angry when Mitchell died. And I was really angry also because when you hear about other people having a tragedy, but then something they prayed through, but no, I prayed to God and my kid lived. I'm like, I prayed. Not like my prayers weren't as unworthy. They weren't unworthy, and Mitchell wasn't unworthy, but those thoughts go through your head, like in the anger of, well, how come those kids get saved and then my baby died?
Yeah.
He was good. He deserved to live. But we'll never know those answers. We have to process through it, but that anger is there, and that, and seeing these things, and you have to deal and process with it. But different things can bring you out of it. Like the religion part, like we were so angry. I was so angry until I saw the file from the attorney, and I realized how dangerous this place was when he was like, okay, here's the certifications from the employees. And he literally slides them across the table like this. And I'm like, why are you only passing me CPR? You're only passing me CPR certifications like they were lifeguards. Where's their swim instruction certifications? Where's all this stuff? And he's like, it doesn't exist. And I literally told him, go do your job. They do exist. They talked about it. Didn't mean it was reality. I believed. I didn't ask to see it. And then I realized And when I found out the numbers, how they didn't adhere to the ratios that they were supposed to have.
What were those ratios again?
16 to 1 when Mitchell died.
That's crazy.
That they weren't taught to do head counts. If they had done a head count, Mitchell would have lived. Because they left the room to bring in a new group of kids within 2 minutes of Mitchell going underwater. If they would have done a head count of the kids, it was within the amount of time statistically that he wouldn't have had, statistically probably most likely not have had neurological damage, brain damage. He would have survived if they would have found him and started CPR at that point.
Do you think that part of
Oh, real quick.
No, go ahead.
Remember your thing. Marvin actually found religion in a way after this, after Mitchell died. Marvin. Really? Oh yeah. Marvin was so Marvin was, Marvin's family is, they're Buddhist, but Marvin is, a complete atheist. He was like, I'm not agnostic. There is no God. There's no way there's a God. There's no God. And if you believe there's a God, you don't have the intelligence of being able to comprehend life. In a way. Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. but it was like he didn't believe in God. He's like, it can't exist. After Mitchell died and the events that led up to it, I don't want to go too much into it because that's our private story.
Sure.
But it felt like we were on a roller coaster leading up to taking our kids to that event that we couldn't get off. There were so many things that had happened that normally we'd be like, this isn't our day, we're going home. Nope, we're not doing this. Nope. There was about 3 things. And we are actually extraordinarily strict in this stuff. And even when we got there, and both of us had said this later, we both felt like there was just this push of
something else was involved.
This was happening.
Yeah.
We were on a train and it was going. And he was having a hard time grappling with this. And finally, the surgeon, it wasn't even a close friend, but a surgeon, this is one way you can help friends with grief. You don't have to constantly push, but you can be like, I'm here if you want to talk and we can go out to eat. Finally, Marvin accepted it from one person and they went out to eat. And he was able to unload that. I feel like there was this unstoppable force that this was going to happen. This was meant to happen. It was destined to happen. And he was able to unload it, and how that didn't align with his previous atheist beliefs. And how it made him start thinking in other ways. And I don't want to talk for him and think how he's thinking now, but it changed actually that deep in him in an opposite way of the way some people, before Mitchell died, I went to church regularly with the boys. I would take them. After Mitchell died, I haven't been able really to go back much, and it's not because of what people think. It's not because I'm angry, but it's because of what's happening now.
Sure.
I get so emotional because all of a sudden I realize I'm just so thankful to God because he saved Evan, because Evan could have died that night. I could have lost both my babies.
Yeah.
And so I tried going to church after that. I would be hysterical sobbing just from the moment I stepped in the pew until I'm leaving. And so I eventually stopped trying. But it's not because I don't believe, or not because I'm not thankful to God, but it's because for some reason my grief does this with church, because it's odd to think this, but I'm so thankful to God for Evan and him saving Evan. I know Mitchell's not here anymore, but knowing what I know, Evan could not have been here too.
Yeah. We talked a little bit earlier about my dad passing, and just some of the things that I was experiencing, and I don't know exactly where I was in my brain at the time, but I had a friend of mine who was going to a church here in Alamo Heights, and I was like, I'll go with you, and I'm the sit in the back of the church kind of guy, most of my friends and my mom sit in the front, and it was very interesting because I always feel like when I really needed it. Here's some more here. These are amazing. I don't know.
I got some good ones here.
I should have handed that to you earlier.
That's okay.
I went to church with her a few times, and the first day that I had gone with her, it was this beautiful, I think it's a Lutheran church or something.
My sister went to that one.
The one in Alamo Heights?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And, I sat in the back. I got there a little late because I do that. And so I sat by myself in the back, trying to stay away from people because I was super emotional too, and just I hadn't been in a church so long, and I was getting watery eyes thinking of Dad, and then just being in the mass, and it's very similar to the Catholic religion, just the whole thing's very similar.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I thought, this is God talking to me, because I'm standing in the back, and all of a sudden probably 40 men, with the choir came down from the balcony. Mm-hmm. And I was expecting them to march to the front of the church to start singing. And they literally stood almost completely around me and a few other people in the back. But it was all the way across the back and all the way around the side. And I remember just hanging onto the pew in front of me, looking down, crying. And they were just singing. And it felt like they were singing directly at me. Yeah. And like I told you earlier, I'm kind of an ornery person, and I fought it, and I didn't want to hear it. I couldn't take it, and they wouldn't stop singing. And after a while, it kind of makes you, I kind of equate it to my dog Beaumont when he was being ornery, right? And you sit there and you roll him on his side and you hold him down by the scruff of his neck, and he fights and he fights and he fights, and then all of a sudden he does that and he stops. Yeah. And it's like that was literally what I did. I just was tensed up. I was holding on to the pew. I was crying. I was getting so mad. And then I just I just let a breath out. And I finally I let myself relax, And it's funny because I don't want you to speak for Marvin. But one thing...
He doesn't want me to speak for him either.
and I totally get that. But, it's interesting because it's hard to get guys to communicate that. Yeah. And one thing that, I come across a few guys every now and then and that do share. And I wish men shared more because I think we all experience things similarly. But it's almost in our nature to go... I'm the guy that has to hold
you're the
everything
rock.
back.
Y'all are the rock.
It's like my kids can cry, my wife can cry. Everybody can fall apart, but I'm not allowed to. And we do that, and it gets to the point where it's like that's not healthy for us. And if we're not mentally healthy, how can we really support our family in an extreme time of need? And I. Again, if I sat here with a group of guys, it'd take me forever to open up, or maybe not so much now. I kind of do it from time to time on this thing, but we talked about you mentioned about people carrying other people's sorrow. Yeah. I told my brother Joe when my brother Eddie died several years ago. I think I'm still like this. Like I am comfortable in sorrow. And I did a podcast with my brother Joe. We talked about it on there, but I told him everybody was saying, "Hey, your brother would want you." This was before Dad passed, but your brother.
People
would want
are
you.
not comfortable with others being in sorrow.
Yes, and people tell me, "Hey, your brother doesn't want you there." But this weird thing happened to me where it was like, and this is probably me being wrong, but like I felt like my brother died. This was the last emotion I had when I physically had him, even though he was gone. Yeah. And it's like, this is all I have left was this emotion that I had when he's sitting on a gurney in an 8x8 cooler and he's still warm and I put my hand on his chest. That's how I felt. And I always felt like I was afraid to abandon those emotions because I felt like I was betraying him, right? Yeah. It was like, this is the last place he and I were. And it's not a physical place, it's an emotional state.
He deserves the pain.
That's
he
how
deserves your pain because he was so amazing.
Right.
Like, yeah.
That's how I felt. And it's funny that you say that because that's how I felt. I even told...
That is grief.
Yeah.
And people need to be comfortable with that because...
Yeah. Now I need paper towel. Thanks, April.
I know. Let's make it more crap. No, but people need, and that's part of actually this and the community tragedy. We need to be okay with others grieving and let them grieve in peace.
Yeah.
Because it's a mirror reflection of your love. Like when you love someone that much, you're going to have that much pain.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't love them, you're not going to have that much pain, And so it is a direct reflection. And I do get what you're saying of and it's not like you voyeurism want your loved one up in heaven to see you grieve for them. Because honestly, I felt guilty of Mitchell seeing me grieve for him. I felt guilty about that. But they deserve it because that's the love. That's the love processing the new form that you have for them because it's not the same. Life will never be the same. And you're grieving your life you had with them, the life lost. People don't think about that too. The loss of the planned life. What should have happened? Talk about grandkids, but other things, other events that you should have had with your brother. The Christmases, I don't know, y'all go fishing, whatever. I don't know.
We would send pictures of us shooting the finger to each other throughout the day.
Okay, you don't get those memes. You don't get your memes.
Yeah.
You got to grieve everything, and so when people have to be comfortable with that, because I'm not going to process my son's grief in 2 months. That's normal. It's not normal to think someone's going to be okay in 2 months because they're just not, and we just have to be comfortable with that. Obviously, someone shouldn't, someone being in deep depression, like, suicidal, that sorts, that's different. But grieving, it is going through. And if you don't let it go through, it's actually going to stay with you the rest of your life. Like what you said with men who have to be these rocks and they feel like they can't, that will affect their family the rest of their lives. And part of it's our society's fault for what we expect. Like, honestly, we give people, a week or 2 off? Your dad died, you get 5 days off.
Yeah. I think it was 3.
Yeah. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
Give me a break. I mean, and statistically, they actually show brain function, cognitivity, IQ goes down. Like, I think it was like 20 points. That would actually be a disability. If, like, in Ask Your Wife. Like, it's like, that would be considered like, disabling to that person. Even though they might still be above intelligence level, a 20-point drop for them would be disabling for that person. But we expect them to function. We expect them to go work, earn money, because they have bills they have to pay, and function and be able to do all these great things, and they are just surviving.
I'll say in a weird way, work was a relief. Because, this sounds very weird, and I'm not saying things need to be different, but...
No, to each their own. To each their own. Marvin went to work after a week, like you.
Yeah.
He
really
wanted
helped.
things to do. He needed things to do.
I'm that way. But what was funny is, like, Eddie's funeral, and especially my dad's, my dad had a lot of folks that I hadn't seen in forever, right? And there were people that he grew up with and when he was younger and throughout his life. My brother had a lot of friends similar like that, but Eddie also had a lot of people that I never met because, through his work and everything. But it was funny because I found myself, and I'm sure my siblings were very similar, throughout the church masses that we had for Dad, I found myself consoling everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it was like, they come through the procession and they see you and they, and it's like, it's funny because I found myself, and it was almost like I wasn't grieving at the church. I was shaking hands and smiling and listening to stories and sharing stories. And it was like I found myself consoling other people. Yeah. And I will say this one thing that I tell people, and I try and convey to my nephews too, is like when Eddie died, we had the type of relationship that I had no doubt he knew that I loved him. And I had no doubt that he loved me. And same thing for Dad. So it wasn't even a matter, there's so many people that go through life and they spend time away from their loved ones because they're fighting or they're angry. Like, didn't have any of that. So that portion was kind of like, I didn't have that problem. It was more like, I can't believe I don't have this person anymore. And I want to ask you this question because, like, for me, when Eddie passed, I felt like I had to replace him. I had to put somebody else in his spot. And in a weird way, I did his oldest son, which was my oldest nephew. And all of a sudden, I would share the things I would share with Eddie with him, the conversation, I brought him in the text threads between the siblings. And, he participated, but I was like, I shouldn't do that to him because he's not Eddie. Yeah. He's his own person. He's my nephew. And so I'm curious, like the younger boys, was that just something natural, or were y'all was it something where it's like, hey, we're missing Mitchell so much, let's add some boys to the mix? And God bless them. Well, I'm glad that you have them.
Me too.
But was that the thought?
I cannot imagine not having Tristan and Wesley. Like, they're such big forces in our lives. But okay, so
y'all were done at the time, right?
We were so done.
Yeah.
We were, in fact, just like it was like 2 or 3 days before Mitchell died. I looked at Marvin. I was like, I had like like the little ovary hurting moment of like boxing up some clothes or toys, and I was like, you better go get fixed before I change my mind. We were done.
Yeah.
So, starting off here, because I'm sure all of my kids will hear this, so they just need to hear this up front. No one's ever meant to replace Mitchell.
Yeah.
And it was not a replacement child situation. So what happened was, our children were our lives. Mm-hmm. Okay. And first our children were our lives. They really were. Our family was everything. It was the most important thing to us. And, Mitchell gone, obviously everything's changed. Our house, Mitchell was the loud one, the rambunctious one, and our house is so quiet. And Evan mourned his brother. Like, it was hard for him so much not having a brother. And he would be like, "Mommy, why is our house so quiet?" And I couldn't tell him because Mitchell was the loud child, honey. I'd be like, "I don't know, hon. I'm not sure." And he was constantly walking around being like, "Mommy, why is our house so quiet?" Evan wanted another sibling. In a way, he became like an emotional hoarder. He wanted 100 babies, 100 siblings. That's how he wanted to, that's what he felt like he needed. I didn't want any more kids. I didn't. Because honestly, I couldn't replace Mitchell. I didn't want to try. I didn't want to offend him in a way of being like, I can replace you because he was so awesome. Mm-hmm. I can't do it. Marvin wanted what we had in a way because it was a great family unit. Our boys got along so well. The rhythm, it was great. And Marvin, he really wanted 2 more kids. At that point, I had them, previously. At that point, I was almost 40, and I was like, we got problems.
It's crazy when you hear a doctor.
Dude.
When you hear a doctor say you're 38 and what do they call it?
Geriatric pregnancy.
High risk pregnancy. It's like to women, it's like that's not they should reword that.
So, but I could have kids right then, but I didn't want kids right then, and so I was like, okay, let's go ahead and make some embryos. So if we decide to have kids down the line, we have that option, because if we decide to have kids in 3 years, that option might be closed. Because realistically, statistically, like how a woman be able to have babies, yes, you can, but it makes it harder. The statistics go down after a certain amount of years. So I was like, all right, fine. We'll go ahead and prepare just in case, whatever. So we did IVF to make some embryos, right? And I did that because I love my husband. I love my son. And I'm like, he gave me a really good life, and I want to do this for my husband and at least give him the hope, whatever, right? and we make the embryos. I'm good with life. And I just can't. I mean, I'm grieving my child. I mean,
Sure.
I'm like.
Well, that had to be difficult to even go through that process.
Oh, it was like,
Yeah.
it's the first year. I'm now really probably insanely hormonal because I'm doing all these injections and it's like, honestly, I was just trying to live. I was just trying to live each day. I was trying to like be a parent to Evan, get Evan through this, and literally wake up and breathe. But Evan kept asking for a sibling, and I was like, I can't do it. I was like, it's not a happy home. Because he used to always say, like, it's not the size of the home doesn't matter, it's the love that's in it. And we have such a happy home. We have so much love in our home. And after Mitchell died and Evan kept being like, I want a sibling, I was like, I don't want to, I was like, it's not fair to bring a child into a sad home. And I just can't do that. And Evan finally came up to me and said, Mommy, our home isn't sad. Our home is filled with love. I was like, oh my God. Like, my child is, like.
I feel like he might be highly intelligent.
Oh, well, he's extraordinarily intelligent. He's
Yeah.
Marvin's child.
Yeah.
But, wow, that's very deep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I was like, whoa.
We
do have so much love. Yeah, there's a big sad cloud on it, but there's still love in our home. So, and I was like, all right, so we still have so much love to give. All right, let's do it. So
What's interesting is he had that perspective even after, being told there's no love or the love was
sad
missing.
home. It's a
sad
sad
home.
home. Yeah.
That he...
Oh, he came and told me no. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not a sad home.
It sounds to me like
Yeah,
the feeling
probably.
he was feeling was stronger than what he was hearing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, he knew the reality he saw.
Right.
The reality he saw. Yeah. It was different than my reality. We were still making him happy, and we were still giving him happiness and love, and we
That's
do
interesting.
have love. But knowing, our house is a happy home,
Yeah.
and
That's so interesting that you were capable of doing two things. You were
it was hard.
severe grief.
Okay, so I was actually looking. It was best with Evan around because it gave me the focus of. I called it faking it till you make it, and it really upset Marvin. He's like, "Well, how do I know if you're faking your love for me?" And I'm like, "I'm not faking my love for you, but faking happiness until I make it."
Yeah.
The counselor said it's okay, but with Evan being like pretending to be happy, and it slowly like the happy moments actually were natural. They weren't faked,
Sure.
Now they aren't faked. They're all natural. But I had to fake it till I can, fake it till you make it.
Well, you know what I think happens in relationships and even just like a lot of relationships, even mine, it's kind of like, you can either fake it till you make it, or you can express those true feelings that are negative.
Yeah.
And then what do they say? Whatever you water grows.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, if you're going to water the negative stuff, then the negative is going to grow.
Yeah.
And even though maybe you're not there yet, if you feed the positive, eventually it's going to grow. And, and I think a lot of times people don't have enough, I don't know how I would phrase it, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, I'm tired of faking and I'm just going to, I'm tired of doing all these things. I've done this. And I think I've even expressed it to my wife before. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to do what makes me happy now. And it's interesting because it's at times that's negative. But one thing that I try and express to her, and this kind of dumb guy stuff, not to get away from our topic. Mm-hmm. I'm just venting now all of a sudden. But it's kind of like if I can be allowed to do the things that I need to do, within reason, right? And not talking about being a complete idiot, but it's like if I can focus on me for a little while, I feel like most men, when they're happy, when they have an opportunity to feel good about themselves, I think a guy's natural intuition is to take care of everybody around him, right? And it's like when we don't feel like we've been taken care of to whatever degree we need, after a while, we don't want to do it anymore because now we feel we just feel negative about it, right?
Well, it's just like a kid. If they feel like they aren't doing good, doing well in school, and they can't do anything right at home, and they start feeling negative, and that,
it's kind of like
positivity.
Why bother
positivity,
trying?
people.
Imagine
positivity.
that. So you end up having another.
So I'm like, all right, fine.
How long after you did the IVF?
It wasn't that long because of Evan. Like, he was persistent. Like, he wanted 100 babies, so we need to get on it. He was very persistent. So we implanted. It was about a year. It was right at a year after we implanted Tristan, and he was meant to be here.
Yeah,
he really was. I can't imagine a world without Tristan. Honestly. And it's so crazy because I know I said this before, but it's like before when I've said, I actually have told Evan, he's like, Mommy, if you could do anything, what would it be? If you can get in a time machine, what would you do? I'm like, I would go back and not take y'all to that swim school. And Evan started bawling hysterically. I'm like, why are you crying? Wesley's not born yet, And he's like, because then we wouldn't have Tristan.
Oh, like, really?
Oh, shit, you're right. I can't wish Mitchell alive anymore in a way, because that would mean I wouldn't have Tristan. And God, I love Tristan.
Yeah.
I love them both.
You know, I feel like you do in interactions with you, in text with you, in conversations with you. I feel like you have an amazing, I'm going to use this for lack of a better term, but I feel like you have an amazing handle on this journey that you've been on. And it's interesting because I feel like you've put in so much work. I feel like with all the therapy. I feel like it's therapy.
I don't know about therapy, dude. I did 3, like, at one point I think I was doing like 3 days a week.
Yeah. Well, you told me that
hey,
before.
I'm here. I'm breathing.
But you know,
it's a win.
It's like all that work you guys did. And sometimes, and I hate to do this, but like sometimes I go, she put in all this effort. And I think about all the people that put in a fraction of that effort, and it's like, it continues. The grief continues to evolve. You have its ups and downs.
Yeah.
And I think about other people who've had, maybe not similar experiences, but it's like, I think that's why people grow up fucked up.
Well, yeah,
because it gets ignored. The
emotions.
The emotions.
Not be able to process it. You have to process things.
And it's not.
Like I told, it goes. Actually, no. There are studies. It actually goes into like neurologically into you. It settles into you. Yeah. It affects your body. It affects your autoimmune. So it affects your mind.
But I think when people need to realize is.
But honestly, I want to tell the truth. If I didn't have Evan, I wouldn't have cared about all that. It was all for Evan.
Yeah.
It was all for Evan. And getting Evan through this without him having those issues. Because, okay, here's the thing. My mom suffered insane tragedy, actually, at a young age, at around Evan's age. When she was 3 years old, she witnessed her mom dying. Somebody, her stepdad shot her mom in the car in front of all of them.
Wow.
And her and her sisters. And seeing how my mom was never, because it's the 50s, you deal with it and move on.
Yeah.
And seeing how it affected her the rest of her life, honestly, emotionally, and her being able to handle emotions, handle love. She had a hard time with love, even, and being able to have love, give love. If I hadn't have grown up with my mom having a traumatic experience at a young age, who wasn't able to process it because the adults didn't help her with that were taking care of her, I wouldn't have known how gosh darn serious this was for Evan, that it would absolutely derail and change his life. I mean, it has changed his life, but I still want it to be a positive life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one thing that I want people to also think about is,
the kids. Like, I mean, you know what? Screw adults. You know what? Not screw them. But I mean, we can. You should be able to manage through things. But the kids, and that's why we have to be really careful. Be careful what you say. Be careful what you put out there. Everything can affect these kids later on. They're going to go out there and Google this stuff.
Yeah.
And they're going to see it, and you have no clue how their little mind 3-5 years from now will process what you said, and they might take it really negatively. Even though you meant it in a positive way, they might take it really, really negatively.
And it's a
it can send them
lifelong
down a
journey.
spiral. Oh my gosh. Statistically, kids that have this, the siblings who weren't there but have suffered the loss of their sibling dying, they statistically have a much higher rate of suicide, drug addiction, all that sorts. And it's like, we have to be in things like this can set it off, you know? And it's like, you have to be so just be cognizant, because the kids, it can affect them.
Yeah.
And we need to protect the kids, you know?
Did you ever see, did any of what Evan has been going through, you and your husband, did any of that ever show up in the two younger boys? Like just
Yes.
in observing, did they take on any of these things?
Yes. Okay. So we've seen it in Tristan. I don't know about Wesley yet. I'm sure we'll mess him up pretty well. We'll find it. But we've seen it in Tristan. Okay. So what happened with Evan? All right. So this happened with Evan. Two stories here. All right. So Evan became extremely, not scared for himself, but he became extremely concerned for Tristan. And we actually had to increase therapy to help this, because he became way overprotective of Tristan, but in a way that was almost scary.
Oh.
And it was scary.
How did it manifest? What did it look like?
Anger. And it got to the point where it's like, okay, if Tristan accidentally got a little nick, I began to get worried, will Evan lose it and try to attack whoever gave the nick? He never did, but he would get so angry and upset because he's seen the worst, you know?
Yeah.
He was young. Tristan was born, he was 7. You know, he's still young, he's still processing it, he's seen the worst, so he's working through it. So we worked through that, but with Tristan, we were like, okay, we're gonna do well on this, you know. So we always want to acknowledge Mitchell, because Mitchell exists. He existed. So it's we always talked, his room's there, we play in it sometimes. And, Mitchell, he went to his swim school one day and, he drowned and he went to heaven. He didn't come back home after that, because, Tristan's 2. How are you explaining to a 1 or 2 year old, heaven? So we're he went to heaven. He can't come back home because he's in heaven. But we're acknowledging Mitchell, so we thought we're hitting it out of the park. We didn't think about Tristan processing this and thinking his brother Evan can go and not come home one day. And so Tristan started crying whenever everyone started to leave the house. And we're why is he hysterical? What's going on? I'm hysterical, crying. And finally he told me, he goes, is Evan coming home? Is he going to come home? And I'm of course, why wouldn't he come home? And I'm saying this, and literally the room next to us is a child who didn't come home.
Yeah.
And it's oh, yeah. I probably should have explained it in a different way.
How do you think you would have done it differently?
I don't know.
Okay.
We're still trying to feel it out with Wesley.
I got you. Okay.
That's
that's what's interesting here is
gosh.
You've got a great handle on it, but it's still evolving, and it's all it's new to you daily, I guess.
How can you think how a 2-year-old's going to process things? Because we don't think like 2-year-olds.
Sure.
We think like adults.
Yeah.
So, I hate to say it, but we don't say, he's not coming home. We try to be more concrete of, oh, he's in heaven. But Wesley, even though he does go to church and he loves baby Jesus, he has no clue. He can't even conjure in his mind. I still can't conjure in my mind really what is heaven.
Yeah.
And so it's it's almost to Wesley Mitchell didn't exist as much as Tristan, because with Tristan, he didn't come home. So that meant he was home before. But with Wesley, because it was made in a different way, it's all interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that's kind of, I think I told you earlier, Mom's at the house now, and my nephew, I call him Tommy, his name's Ian. But Tommy is Eddie's youngest. And Tommy's 11 now, and I think he was maybe 5 or 6 when Eddie died, because I think it's been 5 years since Eddie passed.
That's young.
Yeah, he was super young.
That's actually really impactful for a child, having a parent die.
Well, you know, and this is kind of what I want to ask you is like, he's been with me for like a week and a half, 2 weeks now, and because it's summer. He was 5 or 6 when Eddie passed. So up to that point, you know, I was regularly in his life, and of course his dad was too. And so we had a little bit of a relationship. And then when Eddie died, I think I was grieving Eddie like everybody else was. So my interaction with him got a lot less, you know. And
well, your connection to seeing him also changed, you know?
Yes.
Because Eddie's not there.
And I think it was different for him too. So it was this weird, and I think it was more of a Gabe thing. Like I should have made myself more available, but at the same time, I was grieving over here, you know. And so it's interesting because he's a sharp kid. He's very cerebral. He's a little bit of a nerd. But I don't push it on him. But like when we're driving around, I say, hey, you know, if you ever have a question about your dad, feel free to ask, and I'll answer as best as I can. And his answer is like, okay, you know. And so I go, okay, and I leave it alone, you know. But like, I've got a painting of his dad on the wall, and I said, hey, did you see this painting? And he's like, yeah, we have the real one at the house. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I said, I just had a friend paint it. And then I have a plant, we call it Eddie's plant because we got it from when he passed.
Here's Eddie.
So, yes. So there's a lot of, hey, because, you know, even at a certain point, I was like, I'm just going to refer to Eddie when I'm going to refer to Eddie. And it's going to be less emotional because, you know, I still have his plant. And I, you know, we talk about him in stories and stuff just in regular. And it's funny because, like, I notice he's just very matter of fact, like, okay, you know. And so part of me is kind of like, I don't, when Eddie died, I don't know what that looked like for him and his mom. Maybe she did a fantastic job and he's doing great. I'm not eager. I'm not trying to tap into an emotion in him, but I want him to know, hey, if you got any questions, let me know, you know? And I get a lot of like, okay, you know, just kind of a matter of fact. And so I'm not trying to push him down any road, but in your opinion, what do you think he feels about it? Now, I say he's very distracted, right? He loves video games. He loves that kind of thing.
So I think it's really good that you let him know that you're there for that. So that's normal. That is absolutely 100% normal. It's frustrating to us because we're like, we want to tell you so you can know your daddy.
I want him to go tell me everything.
We want you to know your daddy.
Yeah.
You know, but that's actually really normal because I don't even know how to properly explain it, but that is 100% normal. They might throw out one or two, like, oh, remember when this happened? But that's it. It's like they're not necessarily into reliving through words. But that's why play therapy for children is very important, because actually, like, the play therapist, I was like, y'all didn't say anything. And I paid $150 for this. She's like, yeah, but him wanting to play with the sand and digging, that represents this, actually, usually emotionally. And this usually, you know. So play therapy actually really is a good way to kind of see, like, how they're feeling on things by the people who know what they're doing, not me. But, like, that's so normal. And I found that I would throw out stories of Mitchell and then be like, okay. I'm like, dude, that was funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Every once in a while, he maybe do like 5, you know, I think there's been like 5 stories that he would say, but they're reliving. That's not how their brains are quite processing their memories. Like, they're actually, the way the therapist actually described it was their brains work through memories because they're so small and young and the memories are so fresh in here. They don't talk about memories like we do, you know? Maybe that's a good way to make it make sense. Like, they don't necessarily talk about memories like we do. They don't and their brains process it different. And so it's us projecting how our brains deal with the grief onto children. That's not how theirs do. But theirs go through movement and actions, actually, things like that. That's what I learned a lot. They still feel it.
Yeah.
But it's just a different way of expression.
It's funny because when he was little, I would go to their house, and I'd fight with him. And I told you earlier, I got a little bit ornery. So I'd go to their house, and he, like I said, he was 4 or 5 or whatever he was at the time, 6.
Yeah.
And so I'd walk in the front door, and I'd hockey fight him. I'd grab the back of his shirt and put it over his head and hit him in the face. Or I would pick him up, and they had one of the trash cans where you step in, the lid opens, and I'd pick him up and I'd pretend to put him in the trash can. And it was funny because those things he always thought were hilarious.
Yeah.
And then we had this little separation, just because through grief. And it's funny because now we'll be riding together, and again, he's one of those kids that he's got his phone in front of his face. And so I'll grab him by the collar, and I'll pull him to me, and I'll open-handedly punch him in the cheek, softly. And it's funny because he'll look at me and he'll smile, like he'll laugh. Aww. It's almost like
brought it back.
It's a memory of when we would fight.
Back.
And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, okay, so the therapist actually said it's not auditory that brings back the most memories for kids. It's sensory, like tactile and smell. And she said smell's the biggest one, but tactile and things like that. Yeah.
So I should keep punching him in the face?
No. No.
I've turned it as I've gotten older.
But no, roughhouse. Like give him those and then be like, oh, I love doing this with you. You're like my little, like my little bud, just like I do your brother. There are ways to throw in very naturally about his dad. And they like hearing about their dad, just like
sure.
I mean, they do. They're going to like come out and say that, but in a way, it brings them to them in a way, So it's good to naturally throw out those things instead of being like, pay homage to the plant,
right?
To throw out those natural memories when they're, and they're feeling good and living it. That's amazing.
It's interesting because, like I said, he's 11 now. Again, he's a nerd, but he's been living with his mom and his sister, and then. The majority of the people in his life have been women, and now that he's 11, in my side of the family, the girls that we have outside of my sister were from other relationships, right? Mm-hmm. They're still our nieces. We call them our nieces, but everybody's boys, And so I think he's slowly getting to that point where he's wants to hang out with boys,
mm-hmm.
And so my nephew is going to move in with us in a few weeks. And I remember today he was like, so when's Jared coming? And I said, well, Jared will be here in a week and a half. And I said, and you can keep coming to the house anytime you want. And so I can tell he gets excited, because he wants to do guy stuff now. He still likes to do nerdy things, and he likes to play games and board games. He loves chess. But, he wants to hang out with some guys.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, as I've gotten older, I've turned into this I love you guy. Hey, see, let her love you kind of thing. And so I do it with him as well. And I remember it was a couple of weeks ago. It was the first time that I really hung out, spent a significant amount of time with him. And he was going to sleep. He was sleeping on the sofa. I said, good night, I love you. And it was funny because I was looking at him, and he was on his phone. And he looks at me and he smiles and he goes, I love you too. And so slowly those things are just kind of he does it naturally. We're big ma'am and sir in our family. So that's another thing that we're trying to get him comfortable with. And, but it's just very interesting because it's like two different people. It was him when he was little, and then there was this big gap. And then we, now we're interacting again, and it's
and he's changed because now it's been this many years without the dad influence, your brother influence,
sure.
and what he would have, shaped his personality into.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but even though in a way, we still feel the pain every day, but we're, better in a way, and stuff. But our lives aren't anywhere the same, mirroring. It's completely different. Same characters, but complete different lives, right? Because of Mitchell's death. And that's him too. It changed. And you saw the change of 5 years without your brother, 4 years, however long, like that's significant.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's different to see him because he's like a different boy. He's still the same,
and he's still processing grief, but doesn't know it in a way. Like he's still processing loss in a way, you know. And he's still going to go through like different little phases of anger and frustration, and you know, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like we were talking about, you know, behavior being communication, and it's funny because like I've been interacting with him a lot this last couple of weeks. And I'm different too because I'm almost 50, right?
Yeah.
And so like my interactions with him are different than what they were with his brothers because I was 20 something when they were little kids.
Yeah.
And so with him, I find myself trying to encourage him to take on. This sounds weird, but like to take on certain characteristics, right? Like today, I totally screwed up, April. I got him into LARPing. Do you know what LARPing is?
No.
Live action role playing. So
Okay.
you ever seen that movie where they play with swords and they're
I
covered
feel
in
like I
foam?
need to Google this a little bit more to get a better description.
So it's where nerds go and they fight like medieval soldiers, but everything's covered in like foam.
Wait. There's actual businesses that do this?
Yeah.
Stop it. Where?
Shirts.
Where?
Shirts is one.
Stop it.
Are you
Oh my
se-
God.
I'll take you next weekend.
Well, no, we need to take my kids.
Well,
They want a LARP.
Well, check this out. So I took him.
Okay.
This is my thing. Okay. I love a variety of things.
Okay, what type of LARPing is there? Is it just like swords? Is it like...
Well, today there was water fight LARPing. So it was. This is the thing: is these boys love it, and so I wanted him to interact with other guys, right? And there's girls there too, and then to be more physical and. You know, the whole fantasy mentally of like sword playing and wizards and potions and, you know, bow and arrows and stuff like that. And everything's covered in foam. And it's kind of...
So it's safe and good.
As long as you don't get hit in the eye.
Or eat it. You don't bite it and eat it. Okay.
But, you know, we went last weekend and it's interesting to kind of see him get exposed to something that he hasn't done before. Mm-hmm. You know, it's his cup of tea. He's 100% in now. And my problem is he lives up here in like Timberwood and I live in Selma. So I had and it's over in like Selma Shirts area. Mm-hmm. So I had to come get him and take him over there. But, you know, it's nice to see him interacting with these people. But I still have these times where I'm like, for example, today, I'm an observer, right? And so I say, hey, go pay attention, see what's going on. And he tends to, and this is just new to him, right? So I see him standing off to the side. He's just kind of, you know, by himself and bring him over here. Hey, you need to go in there and fit in with people and just talk and just hang around and learn to interact, right? Because he spends so much time on his phone and stuff at home and he hasn't been having these experiences.
Like all kids and how they don't know how to like they will interact through their phone. The person's right there and they're like,
yeah. And so another thing was hey, go help these people clean up. And so for a while, he's like, why? I don't want to, and I'm nervous. And, you know, it's funny because I catch myself. I'm not a dad, but I'm trying to explain, hey, look, if you go help these people, you want to be the type of person that's helpful. Yeah. You don't want to be the guy that plays and then leaves.
No.
You know, and it's just to get him to do these things. But it's funny because, like, I'm watching him kind of grow up without his father, and he's doing a good job, or his mom's doing a good job, but it's like there's these gaps that need to get filled, you know? And it's just strange to see because I've never experienced that. You know, my siblings went through a lot of things when they were younger with their mother, and I never had those experiences. You know, I always had a mom, I always had a dad, I always had a home to come home to. It was always, you know, dad was an alcoholic for a while, but when I was a kid, I thought he was hilarious. You know, and then he stopped drinking. He became religious. So like, it's difficult for me because I want to be patient and I want to be able to help him. But I'm always worried that, you know, like what you were talking about. You know, when you did certain things and you thought you were doing the right thing and it affected the kid a certain way, one of your kids a certain way. You know, I guess that's in my interactions with him. I'm always concerned that I'm going to screw up. You know what I'm saying?
I think being cognizant of it helps, but honestly, this is so important to talk about because people need to see this, that they know, so that they can be like, oh, maybe this is where I can help and step up with, you know, this void over here in my friends, you know, kids' lives or something like that. But because they need positive support, like in these moments of, you know, big grief, it's, even though you don't want people bugging you all the time, it's the silent support that's there every once in a while holding you up that really helps get you through it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's important for people to see that and know that these kids, you know, if they lost a parent, they do have a hole or a sibling, and they need that filled in some way.
Yeah.
If they lost a friend, they need that filled in some way, you know? And it's just so good to get that out there for the healing.
Yeah. With parents, when it comes to parenting.
But you just having the positive intentions is the good thing. Like, I mean, I'm sure you will do something. I mean, because everything will have a reaction, and everything can have a negative reaction in some way. But as long as it's a positive, you know, like you have a positive intention, and you have, you know, it's.
You literally just answered the question I was fixing to ask, because I was thinking, you know, the positive intention is the important thing, because I was just fixing to ask you, like, as a parent, you want to.
You're going to mess him up some.
And that's the thing,
as long
right?
as you make him better in more ways, like you're going to mess him up, but please, you know, like, but as long as you're there pushing and helping and silently being support, you're going to help him more than the little mess ups of accidents, you know, like what we're trying to do with our kids.
And I guess if your initial approach is that positive intention,
Yeah.
you know, that might expose something that maybe you didn't see in that kid originally. But it's almost like you have to do something to get a reaction, and sometimes maybe doing that thing with the good intention, you're going to find a reaction out of a kid that maybe you didn't realize they had an issue with, you know?
Yeah.
And then that's another avenue to take, right? And like with you, you know, when I talk to you and I hear things that you talk about, it's like, it's not a straight line from grief isn't a straight line, you know, and it's this roller coaster, and sometimes there's highs and sometimes there's lows, and sometimes you screw up and then you go back and you fix a few things, but and I want people to understand it's not a 6 month, a year thing, you know, and I didn't realize this till I met you. It's a lifelong thing, you know, and they may come to you at 30 and go, hey, I'm dealing with this, and what do you think? You know, and I think that's important for parents to understand that grief is for a lifetime, potentially, I guess.
Never get over losing Mitchell. It will change in ways, but no, I loved him that much. No. I think also, like, it's really, I totally forgot. My ADD went off the rails there.
That's all right.
Because we were talking about helping kids, and I was like, oh, I need to remember to say this. But
I forgot the other thing I was supposed to remember.
I know, we both do this. Okay. All right.
Wait, let me ask you,
yeah.
you know, with the boys, especially the young ones,
Yeah.
what do you do things with them as far as like guidance that you used to do with Mitchell? Like, have you noticed, are they their own people, or do they have behaviors similar to Mitchell, or do they have behaviors similar to Evan? Like, a lot of times in my siblings, you know, one or two are almost identical.
They're genetically they're made up genetically very similar. You know, say mommy and daddy here. Okay, so we try not to point out to them when they do sound or look like Mitchell. Like Tristan, when he was younger, he looks like the Irish version of Mitchell.
Oh, really?
But he looked so much like Mitchell that it was actually jarring to people that knew Mitchell. And so, like, I'd have to warn people, like the kinder music teacher, when I signed Tristan up, I had to email her because people would start crying when they would see him.
Really?
And he didn't know why people cry when they see him. And it was like his mannerisms. It was so much. Now, because Mitchell never got past age 3, that's kind of gone away because we don't know what Mitchell, you know, if they still behave like each other. But it was like we would actually have to let people, if they knew Mitchell, we had to give them the warning, the heads up. Hey, Tristan looks like Mitchell. Just to let you know, you're going to need to pair that. And even with that preparation, they would actually tear up have their little emotional moment. Wesley laughs so much like Mitchell.
Really?
It sounds just like him. And there's some things he says, and it's like, whoa, but it's Wesley.
Yeah.
It's Wesley. I promise it's Wesley.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that I have these memories, but I want to tell the truth. Like I ran from the memories of Mitchell and the moments with these boys. And part of it was because I didn't want to confront that. I didn't want to confront the pain of having these moments and then thinking about, oh man, I remember doing that with my baby. So
Well, that's got to be difficult to separate.
it is. And so I actually I didn't start processing that until after Mitchell's landing and after the failed, I did not win the, I'm not a city councilwoman.
Oh, that's
I
right.
lost that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to be stay-at-home mommy and focus on the kids again, solely. And it was moments I realized that I was avoiding, like, let's bake blueberry muffins in the morning. And all these little moments, basically I was avoiding in a way being a mom to my little boys. I was a mom and I love them so much. I'm sorry. I feel so bad because it's like I feel like I wasn't the mom I was with Mitchell because I was a really damn good mom. But it was just finally having to face it and have these moments. It was jarring, but then you had the moment and you got past it. So when you had it again, it wasn't as like, oh my gosh, but so I ran from very similar moments. I didn't try to recreate those because emotionally, it was like emotionally cutting. And I didn't realize I was doing that, honestly, until it was in my face. Now, I'm not into emotional cutting. I don't like pain. But, there are, I can't even tell you how many times we have one of those, Marvin's so sweet. He bought me after Mitchell died one of those picture frames that flips pictures,
Mm-hmm.
like
the digital?
Yeah. So we could always see Mitchell and Evan, and we started adding the other boys in there, as they came along because they love seeing their pictures and it's great. And then I can't tell you how many times there's a picture that pops up. I'm like, was that Mitchell or is that Wesley or is that Mitchell or is that Tristan? Usually Tristan, you got like that reddish strawberry blonde hair, but with Wesley, I have to go up there and actually hit the button to see what date it is. Like, is this before Mitchell or after Mitchell? Because sometimes they just seem so similar, especially when you hear a voice. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Did you ever find yourself?
Yeah.
Because a life-changing event like that changes you.
Oh yeah.
Did you immediately know you were a different person? Or did it take time for you to go, I'm not that person anymore?
No, I knew. Right away. I knew I was dead inside, in a way. No, not in a way. When Mitchell died, I was dead inside. I do have emotions, obviously.
Sure.
I love my boys. I love my family. I have very limited emotions. I don't know how to describe this. I don't know. I don't know if it's because it was like such a traumatic, like my boy, my life, my person, my being died. But it's very little can bring emotion from me, honestly. Yeah. I have joy with my family, but like when people, I'm desensitized because I've seen true bad. Yeah. Like I've seen like the worst. Like I've held my kid for an hour after he died. It was probably 2 hours. He was stiff. Yeah. He was stiff. Serious fluid was pouring out of his body and I didn't care. I'm still holding my baby. You're not taking him away. Like when you go through really bad stuff, it makes everything else seem like not a big deal. Yeah. Really, no big deal.
I agree. And it was
no big deal.
After Dad passed away, it was interesting because like I not to sound like a dick, but like I didn't give a shit,
Yeah.
you know. And people,
It's like, that's not important.
yeah,
That's not important.
I would tell people, and I'd say not to be dramatic. I said, but after bearing a
No, they're being dramatic. No,
well, I tell you, yeah,
y'all are. You're
They
just
are.
not desensitized.
But I would tell people, I said, you know, and same thing for you, but I would tell people, you know, after burying my dad and a brother, I'm like, this is nothing,
No.
you know? And it's funny because like, I know that I'm different too, but I sit there and it's like, it's so difficult because I have to be very careful
Yeah.
with how I live my life, because I am the type of person who will go home, go to work and go home every day and never leave the house. I have to remind myself to be social.
Yeah.
I have to remind myself, dude, you need to maintain these relationships with these people. And it's not like a natural thing. Like I really have to work at it. I told a guy, we did a podcast a long time ago, and it was funny because the night we did the podcast was the first night in 3 days that I didn't go home immediately after work, lay down in the spare bedroom, and sit there and stare at the wall until I fell asleep. And I did that for 3 days straight. I never even turned the light on.
Yeah.
I'd sit there in the dark, stare in the dark until I fell asleep. And it was interesting because I was talking to him, and we were talking just about certain things and loss. And I said, dude, this is the first night in 3 days that I didn't do that, you know? And he looked at me like, seriously? And I'm like, yeah. And it's funny because like a lot of people go, you're so funny and over the top. And it's like, yeah, I'm that, but I'm also the complete opposite of that. I don't do gray area. You know, either I'm loud and obnoxious or I'm sitting in the corner staring at the wall.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so like, I have to be careful because I'm so comfortable in that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm comfortable with not seeing people for days or going and being social. And it's funny because like, I always tell myself, dude, if you do that too long, you're not gonna. Me and my wife, we never had children. We had 3 miscarriages. And it was interesting because like in that time period, we lost a lot of connection with people we were close with because they loved us, right?
Yeah.
And they say, hey, our kid's having a birthday party, come to the birthday party. We tried, and we'd go to the birthday party and we'd start crying, and it's like we'd sneak out, you know? And after a while, hey, come to the birthday party, we're having a birthday party. And we quit going.
Yeah.
You know, and it was interesting because like, you know, we're trying to have kids. We're going through the IVF thing, which was a friggin' nightmare. I made love to so many plastic cups. It was ridiculous. I was a champ. I'll tell you some funny stories here in a minute, but you know, we went through that whole process. We were unsuccessful. You know, the last miscarriage was a little bit rougher. You know, they had to go in and remove the baby because I forgot how many weeks it was. I think it was like 8 to 10 weeks or something. They had to remove it. You know, and it's, you know, then you do the IVF. That thing's a nightmare, and it's crazy expensive as well. You know, you spend a lot of money on that stuff, and then you're not successful. And it was funny because like that happened for like 10 years, you know, and 10 years later, we finally gave up. We said, hey, it's not happening, you know? And so you try to reconnect with people, and all of a sudden you've neglected those relationships, and now they're barely there, you know? And because
Well, you're a different person too,
Yeah.
but that's okay. Like my best friends during that time, I mean, we're still friends. I'll text every once in a while, but we're not best friends. I know it's been years since I hung out with them. I still love them with all my heart. The situations have changed,
Sure.
and it stinks. God, I wish so much of life was different. I can't wish that though, because I love Tristan and Wesley. But you're different, but you just have to appreciate they were there in a season. If they're still kind of there, they're there, and you know. And honestly, it's no one's fault. Grief, death, it's hard.
Yeah. And you know, I think those are conversations that I've had with a few of them. It's interesting because we're starting to reconnect with a bunch, especially my friends.
Yeah.
And we've had conversations that are rough to have because in that time period, they felt neglected by me. But I never conveyed to them the reason it was so difficult to hang out with them. You know, and now everybody's kids are older. Some of them are off to college. So they're available again, right? And so there's these reconnections happening, but conversations have been had where I had to explain, hey, it wasn't that I was being an asshole. It wasn't that I didn't like your kid.
You were grieving the losses you had. You were grieving the loss of not having kids, the future you thought you would have. And you were seeing it in their lives. That's emotional cutting.
Sure. And one thing, like, it's one thing when you hear people say, well, we didn't know how to have kids. We didn't have kids. We wanted kids bad. I remember same thing where we would pray for kids, and it's like, I always tell people, I have this, I always have to be abrasive about things because it makes me feel good because I don't have gray areas. But I always tell people, I said, my one of my greatest you ain't shit moments was when we were pregnant the last time, and we were so excited. We went for the sonogram, and you hear the heartbeat, and it was amazing, right? And it's funny because you talk about your husband finding God. Like, I always believed in God, but like when I see this baby on the sonogram, the heart's beating. It's like, how can you not believe in God? Look what's happening, And then we went back 2 or 3 weeks later.
Well, the science of the heartbeat and why it's there. It's not a heart yet and all this other stuff, but yeah.
And it was the you ain't shit moment for me was when we went back. And we were careful with who we told. I told a couple of friends, and I didn't even tell my mom. I told my dad. Because I said, don't tell mom, she's going to go crazy. We wanted to wait a little bit longer. And it was funny because, like, we went back for the last sonogram, and, I'm standing there like an idiot in front of the big TV with my phone up waiting to record it, And so I'm standing there, and the lady's doing the wand, and the baby wasn't even the same colors. Like, it was like a bluish gray, and all of a sudden it was like orange and red, and, like, there's no heartbeat. And so I stop, and I look at the lady, I'm like, where's the heartbeat? And she's frantically just looking, and I look at Nina, and Nina's crying. And the lady says, I'll be back. And she walks out. And, like, my dumb ass is like, what's going on? Yeah. And Nina goes, the baby's dead. And I was like, what do you mean the baby's dead? We're just here 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it's like things like that happen. And those are the type of things where it's kind of like you try and convey to your friends, hey, you don't want to tell every single one of them the things you're going through. But you're just kind of like, I'm sorry I wasn't available. But we had some shit going on. And a lot of them understand now. I mean, reasonable people will hear stories and go, I understand now. Yeah. But it's like, it's really, I sound not to sound corny or cliche-ish, but it really takes, for us, I feel like we were so close with all our friends. Like, it's really taking us reconnecting with them to really get back to some sort of whole, And I think had we just decided not to make that effort to reconnect, we'd have a bigger gap than we do now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a lonely road.
It's wild.
Yeah.
You're making me cry again.
I'm sorry. Am I the only one? Am I your only guest that's made you cry?
No, I think I've cried before, but this is the one, this is the most recent. All the other ones have been crazy. But well, let me ask you real quick before we wrap it up. What is the one thing that you want to convey to parents in particular? Because, again, I would just want to drive home to folks that grief is not temporary. For a lot of people, it's lifelong.
And it's not bad.
Right.
Because we just, society, it's made to think that it's bad, it's not normal. It's not. It is going to change. It's not going to be as suffocating. Like at first you feel like literally imploded. I mean, I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. I couldn't even breathe. I didn't want to breathe. You're barely functioning. That does get better because you learn how to function. You learn the new life. You learn where joy is, where joy should be in a way. I'm a totally different person. I know where my joy should be focused. I mean, I knew before as my family, but really and truly, I mean, I really learned, like, cut out truly anything that interferes or is not positive on this part. You learn it changes. And there's still good that comes out of life. There is still good. If Mitchell hadn't have died, we wouldn't have Wesley and Tristan. They're, gosh darn, meant to be here. They are good. Mitchell's Landing wouldn't be here. I would rather have Mitchell than Mitchell's Landing,
Sure.
big time. But good is happening for literally tens of thousands of families. So it's forever in a different way. It changes. You can't expect for it to go away like we have been told. For some reason, we've been told, I guess, growing up in the 80s, 90s, that it goes away. No, it does not. But you learn how to deal with it. You learn how to function, and you learn how to love your family and where love should go. And you have a new life, you know?
Yeah.
And you try to make it the best life you can for those that are important. Like, honestly, I can give a care less about myself, but my family is so gosh darn important to me. I want to make their life the best darn life in the world I can. And so I'm going to do everything I can to be a good person, a happy person for them. So find what can root you, what can anchor you, and lean into it. You know, not everyone has kids like you. You found, honestly, I think it's been your podcast.
it might have been.
I think you've talked your way through this enough. But like, I think, you know, you find and you change. It's not going to be the same. But it gets better. And you can't, you can't compare it. But you don't push it away because it's now a part of you, and it will slowly become a less pronounced part of you. That's a good way to say it. Oh my gosh, it becomes a less pronounced part of you.
Yeah, and I think allowing yourself to grieve, allowing people around you to grieve, is a way. If you allow that to happen, it's going to end up building a better person at the end of the road than if you try and ignore it and neglect it. Because I think that
it's certainly a different person.
Sure, certainly. You
hope it's better.
But you know what? I think through adversity, and if we allow ourselves to.
The teachers always say anyone who works with Evan says that he is the most kind, compassionate child. But I think it's because he's been through grief and he knows how he's more patient with other kids. He's more patient with his brothers. I'm not saying he's perfect, but because he knows what it's like to lose it.
Yeah.
You know? And so that part of him is good. It's so good, you know? So you're right, yeah.
Yeah. April Chang.
Yes?
I appreciate your time.
Thank you. He brought me food, y'all, just to let you know.
Yeah, we haven't
Isn't he
eaten.
nice?
We haven't
He's so
eaten.
nice. He's a good host. He called it meat pies, and I have family from Louisiana, so I got really excited. It turns out it's empanadas. So I'm still excited.
Well, we're too close to Mexico, so it's an
all good.
influence.
It's all good.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate
it.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
Yo, Barry.